Well, Jingaree to you all from Ugambe in Queensland, and thanks for coming to this final session. My name's Lawrence Bull. I'm Chair of National Mediation Conferences Limited until November this year. And it's my pleasure to lead us through this final session together. I must say I've heard lots of yearning over the 3 days for the physical space of the wonderful locality that was chosen. And I think people think back to Canberra, Gold Coast, Sydney, and the physicality of those situations. But think of this, how many air kilometres we have saved collectively by engaging with the Desert Knowledge Precinct from our virtual lofts. And I think in a sense, the centre really provided more of a spiritual location with the pictures, the tours, the people, of course, the trees, the bird song, and the endless blue skies. So I think, you know, we were strongly located, and perhaps that's a symbol of our time, that wherever conferences are held with whatever degree of face-to-face engagement, they at the very least will provide a symbolism for the event. And I must say those footprints in the sand on the slides were so inviting, and those of you who've been to the Desert Knowledge Precinct will have been very tempted to have been in those footsteps yourselves, as was the prospect of dinner under the stars. Now that brings us to the conference logo, based on an original painting painted by Maureen Abbott, and I have great pleasure in introducing Lynx McPherson, who is the Secretariat for National Mediation Conferences and the person who has organised and finessed the silent auction. Over to you, Lynx.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good afternoon, everybody. After nearly the end of a most fantastic conference. Well, I've got a fantastic job to do this afternoon, and it does involve Maureen Abbott's painting. But before we get to the winner, I'd just like to have a bit of a chat about my involvement with Maureen. Why I was given this job, my involvement with the Western and Eastern Desert artists in Central Australia, where I lived for 18 years, and I worked with the artists and their families on a daily basis. And as you can see behind me, there are 2 of them that I love very much. And well, it was just such an honor every day to watch them paint, hear their stories. And even if some of them used to sing in language, the story while they were painting. And that was just give you goosebumps. And it was as if they paint from their soul. It was, yeah, I still love my involvement in it. And it's just to have them around the walls it's so friendly and wonderful. So Maureen and I worked together as co-mediators since 2009. And when our borders open up, I will be back in Central Australia working with Maureen again. And we worked a lot with One Story. And I know Maureen's spoken about it a lot over the last couple of days. And the successful bidder of the painting, who's so lucky, because he or she will be reminded of that every time they look at it. And we'll be announcing that in a minute. But we used to do One Story when we do mediations. If we went out bush, that we'd have to travel huge distances, and we'd have lots of different meetings. At the end of each meeting in this outstation or community, we would say, you know, what's the one story we're going away with? And that was the story that everybody that was sitting down at that meeting could tell other people, and including us. And then we go to another group of people, and then that's what's the one story. And then at the end of everyone being together for a big meeting, then it was at the very end, one would then chat about what is the one story that we're all going away with. And I just think it's just such a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful name for the conference. And and for this beautiful painting. And you can just see the one story in that painting. So the winner is, I can't do a drum roll because I haven't got any drums. The winner is, it was very, very close, and this winner is really, really lucky because it was just by a whisker, but it's Mark Hepplewhite from Melbourne. Congratulations, Mark.
Well done, Mark.
Welcome, Mark.
You're on the stage, Mark.
Can you hear us, Mark? Can't hear. Anyway, Mark, I will give you a call on Monday about the painting, and just wondering too if it's going to be hanging in your chambers. It's a wonderful thing to look at every day. So congratulations, and I'll give you a call on Monday. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thanks so much, Lynx. I'd now like to introduce to the stage Chris Jeffries. Chris has been on the board for many years. She's a tower of strength in all things mediation and organisational, and has brought to this conference the experience not only of Canberra, but of her own time at the Adelaide conference, which some of you will remember fondly. So much so that we call her Chris, How We Did Things in Adelaide Jeffries. Over to you, Chris. Chris? Rosie, are you able to contact Chris?
Can't hear me? Is that better?
Much better.
Okay. So nobody's heard what I've said yet. Oh, that's great. I'll start again. My job is to thank everybody for attending the conference, to attending, but also in the preparation, the planning, the lead up to it all, and now, of course, the final day. Now, I'm going to miss out people, I know for sure. Chloe, I'm finding it really hard to see those slides. Unfortunately, I can't see the names very clearly. That's better, thank you. But I do want to first of all thank our amazing conference hosts. Pat and Maureen and Harold and Kumali and Veronica and Marlene have all worked incredibly hard, incredibly generously to allow us to have their space and their time and share with us their incredible knowledge, and I cannot thank them enough, and I know that everybody else is feeling much the same way, and their families and their communities and their country for inviting us onto their country, allowing us to be safe and secure on that country. So first up, yes, our conference hosts. Next, we have to thank our event managers, those guys behind the scenes who have worked, I was going to say their little butts off, but they've worked incredibly hard to make it a special event and in very difficult circumstances. Everybody's learning about technology. Everybody's trying to do their best. So Rosie and Natalie and Claire and Rosie and Sita and Emily and Chloe and Will, it's been amazing to have you on board. Thank you for your time. And you can mark us up as your first conquest, if you like, with Events Air. So that's fantastic. Next up, our sponsors. Again, we need people to support our organisation. We are not for profit. We have got a small amount of funding that we carry on through the next conference, but our sponsors make it special for us. So the Mediator Standards Board, Events Air and Relationships Australia, our Family Wizard, the Northern Territory Business Events and Resolution Institute have all been amazing in their willingness and generosity in helping us to put this event on. And next, I think the program committee. Sue Douglas, our chair, who has shared some times with us, Helen and Alison and myself actually, but on Friday nights we've been getting together and planning the next week, and we usually end up with a glass of wine So it's been very much a pleasure, but also a difficult task for people. And we hope that the program that we've put together has been acceptable for everybody and the best that we could do at the time. And I just want to thank finally all the design committee there, the Susan, Helen, Alison, Harold, Pat, and the others as well, Kamali and Marlene, and Maureen, who's gone home, I believe she's exhausted. So amazing people who've done a lot. And finally, I want to thank everybody for coming to the conference, for putting in your time and effort and thoughts and comments and whatever you've done has made this conference something special. And I think it will be one that's going to be talked about for a long, long time to come. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the next conference. I know we're all waiting to hear where it's going to be, and I know, but I'm not going to tell you. It's going to be fantastic. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy your little all join us for virtual afternoon drinkies after this session as well. So thank you again. Bye-bye.
That was terrific, Chris. Thanks so much for that and for your stalwart contributions. I'd now like to invite Alison Boyle to the stage. Alison is a tour de force, somebody with extraordinary organizational skills, great passion, and extraordinary persistence. There were many course corrections in this conference. Just to embarrass her a little, because she loves that, one of her many strengths of Alison is that she says what is on her mind. One of her few shortcomings is that she says what is on her mind. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. For me, it's been a long journey to NMC 2021 that started in 2016 with a commitment I made to myself that this event would happen. And it has been a surprisingly emotional journey for me as well. And now I'm going to thank the people that I think have made this happen. I have had the unflinching support of the board, Lawrence and the other board members and Links. I've had an astonishing supportive program committee, especially Sue Douglas and Chris Jeffries, who've been able to be sounding boards for me. I completely appreciate the hard work of Rosie, Chloe, Sita, and Will from AAMP. Whenever I asked them, I wonder if we could do such and such, they managed to find a way that we could. Like Chris, I want to thank all of you, the delegates to the conference, even the ones that are watching this later on. There's no NMC at all without you. You are what make it. I want to thank the elders who patiently hosted all of us and who have been teaching me throughout as we get into this conference. Above all, I've got to hold my composure. Thank Helen and Maureen, who have so generously guided me through this whole process, teaching me so much along every stumbling step of the way. Anyone who knows Helen will recognise her phrase, countrymen, whenever she's talking about her own people. Not many people will know Maureen's phrase, which I have had on my phone so often. Hello, Alison, it's only Maureen. Only Maureen. Maureen, you are a true friend and you haven't lost me. I'll be in Alice Springs as soon as I'm allowed and we will party. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. That's very touching and personal and a lovely recognition of so many people. And to you, we can only give, I can only say, I think there's a standing ovation in front of every computer at the moment. So thank you indeed. All right, we'll now come to the final ritual, and it is nice to have a little ritual both in our practices. I'm sure you all bring some level of ritual, but also in terms of the mediation conference. I've often used this phrase, others have heard this many times, that bodies like the NMC and similar types of bodies should have many fingerprints on it. There should be no ownership of any individual group or association, but it should be handed on from one to the other. Before going to the location of the next conference, I'd just like to explain very briefly the structure and operation of the NMC, which is partly set out in the delegate handbook, and which has changed a bit since that wonderful conference on the Gold Coast and even subsequent to Canberra. So the alpha creature in the whole system is the board, but it has very limited influence on the conferences. It has a small secretariat, which is ably headed by Lindsay McPherson, who's herself a mediator, and as she said, used to live in the territory. But the board has really the broad supervisory functions, which I'll mention in a moment. The second are the members. Now, the handbook has invited applications for membership. It's for individuals, not for organizations. There's a small annual fee, so please join up to broaden the base of this whole system, to get the many fingerprints and footprints on it. The most important function of the members is to participate in the annual general meetings and to elect the directors, and many directors are elected from the membership itself. The third part of the system is the design committee, or committees, and these are appointed by the board well in advance of conferences. Like the members and directors, they are volunteer. Unlike the members and directors, they do hard work in planning, preparing, pontificating, and painstakingly deal with preening academics. And of course, in this conference, we've had a wonderful design committee headed by Maureen and Alison. And then the final element is the professional conference organizer, and this is the body who does much of the back of house work, particularly in current times, in the detailed organisation and planning, liaison with presenters and sponsors, and of course with the technology. And in this case, as you've already seen from Chris, a wonderful team from AA and P, and it was nice that they were from the Northern Territory. So the PCO then is the catalyst, which ensures continuity, coherence, correction, and sometimes compassion when people get lost. To come back to the board, it has only three main functions. The first is what we might call the constitutional, financial, and compliance obligations. That is the big picture organisational aspects. The second is, as I've alluded to, the appointment of the design committee and the PCO in the conference city. And the third is the selection of the next conference location. So it's really very much a big picture supervisory body, but it does liaise with other entities. Now, it's in relation to this last function, selection of conference location, that the Constitution itself has a very broad discretion, gives the board a very wide discretion, and it doesn't restrict the location in any direct or implicit way. And in the past, actually, the different systems have operated in relation to how the choice was made and the kind of protocols that were followed. In this case, I'll explain how we've gone about it. But I would also note that we have undertaken 2 mini conferences in the last 12 months, one loosely based in Newcastle and one loosely based in Melbourne. So in a sense, there has been some diversity of location. Now, at the AGM in November, we have a proposal for a much more formal and structured procedure for creating criteria and transparency for guiding these choices, the board's choices. So I think that's going to be, probably the final organisational aspect in the structure of the NMC that will be put in place, and hopefully will guide future boards. Now, the decision this year has been made in terms of the 4 R's. First of all, rotation. As you know, there's a wonderful tradition and a ritual of using different localities. Why? Because they provide different experiences, different emphases in content different nuances in orientation and sights and fragrances. And there's also an issue of equity in terms of rotating the location in terms of time and travel and cost and the like. So that's the first principle. The second one is regionalism. And those of you who've been coming to these conferences for the last 3 decades will have noted that the shift occurred actually 5 years ago now from capital cities, first of all to the Gold Coast, and then after Canberra to Alice Springs. So it is, in a sense, to bring in regional and slightly more remote localities is, I think, useful for many. However, regionalism can also have a wider connotation, given the fact that at every conference that I've ever been to, which is all of them, many presenters and delegates come from Asian countries, from the Pacific, and even further afield, on this occasion from Europe, North America, and Africa. And these are frequent supporters of the NMC. So there's also kind of a sense of equity here. We are the hub for them, but perhaps sometimes we can also look to the rim in terms of those. Third point is responsiveness. So what we love is a proposal that is enthusiastic and eager. We have to say that the NMC conference it's never been an unwanted child. But there's nothing like an eager foster parent to incline us to favour a particular locality and to take over the fostering of what people don't always realise can be a sometimes unruly youngster. And the final one is reality, you know, to be realistic in terms of the capacity of a location, factors such as costs and travel, and I suppose the online reality. And I think the assumption at the moment is, despite this grand hope and vision we have of being liberated from pandemic confinement around the world, I think it's probably fair to say that at least part of future MNCs will be online, but hopefully not exclusively. So in a sense, this ties up with the earlier point I made that locality is important, but not only as a physical location, but more in terms of the symbol and the kind of spiritual significance of moving to other places. So as with all good dispute resolution practice, we engaged in expansionary thinking before we came back to contractionary selection. Now this year we had an expression of interest from one regional centre and then a full proposal from a city, and its dispute resolvers eager to foster NMC 2023. And in the light of the 4 Rs, we think the decision will provide new perspectives, as Alice has. We'll build on local strengths in government and tribunals, in community mediation and restorative practice. There'll be new areas of, new dimensions from the Pacific, and even in dealing with trade and rugby disputes across the ditch. So the board has decided that the next conference will be held with the support of these following 2 wonderful people, Grant Morris, who some of you heard speak yesterday, and Malatina Liupepi, and it will be held in Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand.